Okay, part 2. And I see some people in the room missed part 1. So I'm sad. We can't go back and do part 1. This, where we ended up was Bhismadev was lying on the bed of arrows. And there was like so many things that happened before that. And not too many more things are going to happen after that. Okay. Our intelligent young Vaishnavas are going to answer some questions. You ready? No, he's saying no. Okay. Bhismadev was the son of whom? Bhismadev was the son of? Huh? Santanu, who was a king. And who was the mother of Bhismadev? Ganga. And I won't ask you the rest. There was a whole history of how Ganga came to become a resident in the earthly realm, and so forth and so on. And Santanu and she became husband and wife. Here's one. You may remember. Ganga agreed to marry Santanu on 2 conditions. What was one of those 2 conditions? Don't question what I say. And the other was? Don't speak harshly. He was fine with that. Now there was some event that happened, a very important event that happened before Santanu became Santanu, and he had 8 sons. What was the 8 sons event? Who were the 8 sons of Santanu and Ganga? Who remembers? Huh? And the Vasus made a boo-boo. They offended Vashishta. Not only offended Vashishta, they stole a Brahmin's property. They not only stole a Brahmin's property, they stole his celebrated celestial cow when he wasn't in the ashram. And the one that did the actual stealing was put up to it by his good wife. He was a henpecked Vasu. She wanted the cow to give to a friend. That caused a big problem. When Vashishta came back, he cursed them all. You don't belong in the heavenly realm. You go to the earthly realm. And so they did. But they had a prior arrangement with Ganga, who was also going to go to the earthly realm for a different reason. And the agreement that she made is all 8 of them, except the last one, so first 7, would return very quickly after they were born as her sons, and she put them in the Ganga. And from there they returned back to their celestial realm, fulfilling the curse of Vashishta, and also getting the benediction from Vashishta that they would get this reprieve, but they had to descend. There was their consequence for stealing his cow, which he got back, by the way. except for the one that did the stealing, and that was the Vasu, who is the presiding deity of the sky, and his name was Dhyo, Dhyo. It's an interesting name, Dhyo. What's your name, Prabhu? Dhyo. Let's try it again. What's your name, Prabhu? Dhyo. Okay, Dhyo. I both Dhyo. So Dhyo became Deva Rata. And when Ganga was about to drop him in the Ganga, drown him again for the number 8, the king said, "No, don't do that." She said, "Okay, you made a promise. You broke your promise. I'm leaving. You can take care of him. I'm out of here." Oh, no. You take care of him and train him. And so that's what happened. For some number of years, she took full charge of his spiritual education, his military education. Parashuram became his military guru, which becomes important later. So and rather than retelling everything that happened yesterday, he became the son of Santanu. Santanu had a second queen because Ganga is gone, and the second queen, her name was, besides this one devotee that seems to know all the answers. Don't ask him. I'll ask him if you all remain silent. What was the second wife's name? Starts with an S. Satyavati. Good going. Satyavati. But she had a name before Satyavati. What was her name before Satyavati? Matsya Gandha. Matsya Gandha. Gandha means fragrance. And Matsya means fish. She had a fishy smell. She was the daughter of a fisherman who smelled like fish. So her name was Matsyagandha. And Matsyagandha was given a service. Anyway, this is all Mahabharata story, so I'm not going to retell it all. She eventually became the mother of Vyasadeva. Matsyagandha fulfilled a request of Parashuramuni. She gave instantaneous birth to Vyasadeva. So she, Satyavati, had Parashuramuni as the father of her child. Her child's name was Vyasadeva. And it's just a detail. It's a nice detail. Vyasadeva, he was instantaneously born in a full, mature adult form. And he said to his mother, Satyavati, "I'm going to go now, but if you ever need me, just call my name, and I'll be there." There's a song like that, right? So when she needed him, like it was a big problem. It was a big problem. And she called Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva came and produced children because Bhishma, anyway, so it's a long story. And there were 3 children. The 3 children of Vyasadeva were, what were the names? We didn't discuss this yesterday. Anybody in the room? Yes. The first son, Vyasadeva, and the first son, no, the first son was Dhritarashtra. Then Pandu, then Vidura. So that was Vyas came to help out his mother, Satyavati, because she was in a jam. And she had to have the next king. So Bhishmadev's on the bed of arrows because the third sister of the three, we're going to hear about it a little bit, no, actually tomorrow. Let's go back from yesterday. Bhishmadev was the son of Santanu. But after he was born, Ganga left. So that left Santanu without a queen. Satyavati became a queen, and there were two sons, Vichitravirya and Chitrangada. Chitrangada died early. Vichitravirya needed a queen. Bhishmadev made arrangements for 3 queens. And one of those 3 queens said, I don't want to marry Vichitravirya. I want to marry Shalva. She said, okay, you go, because Shalva they had some conversation about getting married and kind of like betrothal and promises to each other and all that stuff. And so Shalva refused to marry her. Long story short, Amba, which is the first of the 3 sisters, got into a super get-back mood towards Bhishmadev because Bhishmadev wouldn't marry her. Shalva wouldn't marry her. She didn't want to go back to her father. She didn't know what to do. She went to Parshuram. The sages took compassion and said, go to Parshuram and he'll help you. Parshuram confronted his disciple. Remember? Parshuram was the military guru. Right? Remember that? Those of you who were there. So I order you. You marry this girl. I can't marry this girl. I made a vow that I'll not marry. You either marry her or battle. And he said, well, this is one of those situations where the instruction of a spiritual master can be neglected because it violates the religious principles. So let's go fight. They went to Kurukshetra, 23 days. Neither was winning. Bhishmadev received some message from Parshuram. Okay, you don't have to marry her. I withdraw the instruction. So Bhishmadev is so powerful. Bhishmadev is so powerful that even Parshuram cannot defeat him, which is a big deal. That's good. That's good. See, everybody got it? Parshuram is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, a warrior incarnation of the Supreme Lord who couldn't defeat Bhishmadev. How powerful is Bhishmadev? Super powerful. So Amba, the lady that wanted to get back at him, she underwent austerities and austerities and austerities, got a benediction from Lord Shiva that she could die and take birth again as a woman and then become transformed into a man. And it wasn't one of these modern things that goes on. And she was born as a woman, Sikandi, who later had a sex change with a yaksha, friendly guy. Said, sure. Anyway, long story. She became a man. And Sikandi is the one who, during the Kurukshetra battle, Bhishma wouldn't fight because she was a woman, or at least born as a woman, and he wouldn't fight a woman, in principle. And so that's where he ended up. Bed of arrows. And Tomorrow evening, we're going to hear some further details. I'm just going to cover some significant points. The Bhagavatam describes that the Pandavas, knowing that Grandfather Bhishma had been lying on his bed of arrows for a number of days, went out to the battlefield in royal attire, etc., 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 to offer their respects and honor to Grandfather Bhishma. In the painting, you see Arjuna wanted to provide Grandfather Bhishma with water because his throat was parched. So he shot an arrow. You see in the bottom left, he shot an arrow in the ground and he got a water fountain. Pretty good arrow, huh? So Bhishma got some water. And there's Krishna and the other Pandavas, and of course many sages and many other personalities. They're at the time of Grandfather Bhishma feeling terrible, terrible, terrible that look at this condition and we're the cause, especially Yudhishthira was blaming himself as being the cause of this condition. From the Bhagavatam, King Yudhishthira, surrounded by his brothers and companions, appearing very aristocratic like Kuvera and the Guyakas, came to see Grandfather Bhishma. There are many other sages and other people. There's Grandfather Bhishma lying in the bed of arrows in the background back there, and some sages. Bhismadev welcomed the Lord. How could he welcome the Lord? He's lying on a bed of arrows with his words and with his eyes and his demeanor, and great devotees within his heart. Prabhupada writes in his purport, expert religionists know perfectly well how to adjust religious principles in terms of time and place, meaning he couldn't do the standard thing when guest comes, but he did what he could do from within his heart. So there's a whole section where Prabhupada is discussing the principle as well as the protocol of receiving a guest, or especially a saintly person. So there he is again, there's many paintings of this scene. And the sons, that's the Pandavas, were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for their dying grandfather, because their father was absent. Their father had died young. And so their grandfather took the role of father. And he took care of them like his own children, grandchildren. And he had great affection for them, and they knew it, and they had great affection for him, and he knew it. And this is part of the mystery of his whole pastime. Because look, he's so powerful, he could be undefeated by Parshuram. He could have wiped out the whole army. No problem. But he didn't. Why didn't he? We discussed this a little bit yesterday. He knew the skullduggery of Duryodhana and all of the cheating and murder plots and bad character and etc. He knew all that. So he just wipe them out. They're fit to be punished severely by Vedic law. And he didn't do it. Not only didn't do it, he fought on their side. We talked about this. And one of the main meditations in the heart of Bhismadev is he wanted to glorify the Pandavas because he knew how dear they were to Krishna. Not that he isn't dear to Krishna, but he knew that they were very dear to Krishna, so he wanted to honor them, that they would do the good deed of finishing these wicked demoniac persons for whom Krishna had appeared in this world. Another nice painting. There's Yudhishthira in the front. There's Krishna. and many sages, etc., etc. The appearance of Lord Krishna at the deathbed of Bhismadev is due to his, that's Bhismadev's, being an unflinching devotee of the Lord. In other words, it was co-orchestrated. Ultimately, the orchestrator is Krishna himself, so he could honor Grandfather Bhishma by being present as it was his desire, but being present before him at the time of death. So hopefully there's a Srimad Bhagavatam handy. Do you have Srimad Bhagavatam in your house? Good. Could you get Canto 1, Chapter 9? This is another nice painting. They're, very nice painting of Krishna. The 5 brothers are clearly identified. And Bhishmadev is going to be speaking. Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. Now, specifically, Yudhishthira is the son of Dharmaraj or Yamaraj, or religion personified. But here he's speaking of it in a plural sense. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you are protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. Important. No, devotees protect Brahmanas and cows. Namo Brahma, and Krishna protects Brahmanas and cows. But those who follow the principles of Dharma and protect the principles of Dharma are protected by Dharma. Dharma rakshata rakshataha. You know that one? Some of you know that one. A few of you know that one. Now you know it. Now you all know it. Those who protect Dharma, Raksha, Dharma Raksha, Rakshataha. Those who protect Dharma are protected by Dharma. And the opposite is true. So they were protectors of Dharma, and therefore they were protected by Dharma. And the representatives of Dharma, the Brahmanas, the upholders of Dharma, and the Supreme Lord. It's not exactly you did not deserve to remain alive, but that a normal person wouldn't have been able to remain alive. But you are protected nonetheless. So we heard earlier in Kunti's prayers, it's chapter 8, this is chapter 9, that Kunti was very clear that Krishna was the protector. And through so many calamities, this great crisis, that great crisis, you protected us this case, you protect us that case, we discussed. So now it's a reversal where Bhishmadev is saying they were protected by, of course, Kunti was saying Krishna, but Brahmanas, God, and religion. Oh, best among the descendants of Bharata. Specifically, he's addressing Yudhishthira. I maintain, therefore, that all this was within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. What's the plan of the Lord? You are now the appointed administrative head. And, my Lord, grandfather is speaking to his grandson is my Lord, because he's the king. They just had the previous chapter in Mahabharata, he was installed on the throne. And then they went out to the battlefield to find Grandfather Bhishma was lying there alone. You should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. They need a protector. This is the plan of the Lord. And it's true. Krishna didn't want to leave the earth planet with a demon in charge. He wanted the demon who usurped charge to be eliminated, and a righteous king to be in charge of the world. Now, there's enmity from those who were killed during the battle. And there are, anything can happen unless there's a righteous king. So Krishna wants you do. The whole series of events is his orchestration, which is true. And now the rest of his orchestration is left for you to fulfill. So please do. May my Lord, who is four-handed. Now, it is said that one sees the form of the Lord according to one's particular devotion. That is, the Lord reveals a form according to one's devotion for him. So that's how he sees him, four-handed. And whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun and smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. He wants to see Krishna's smiling face at the very moment he quits his body. There we are again. He's lying on the bed of arrows saying all these nice things. Lord Sri Krishna inspired Maharaj Yudhisthira to ask Bhismadev about his duties as a king in the presence of many great sages, indicating thereby that the Lord's devotee, like Bhismadev, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages. So it's like, while he's lying on the battlefield, he's saying, oh boy, can you give a Bhagavad Gita class? It's a little bit like in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, maybe some of you are familiar. According to Brihad Bhagavatamrita, after Shukadeva Goswami spoke the message to Maharaj Parikshit, there was time remaining before the snake bird came. Now, it's not described like that in the Bhagavatam, but it's described like that in the introductory section of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And so Uttara, who is the mother of Maharaj Parikshit, came rushing forward and said, I couldn't understand all of what he said. Could you explain it to me? And he said, Mother, this is normally not the best time to ask for a Bhagavatam class, but because you've asked, I'll summarize what I've understood from Shukadeva Goswami. And thus, he gives a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam in the form of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Very interesting, huh? So here's Bhagavatam 1.9.26, 27, 28. Long purports. I'm just going to read the verses. At Maharaj Yudhisthira's inquiry, Bhismadev first defined the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualification. In other words, the varnashram system. That's a big topic. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. Real clear, right? What does that mean? Yukta Vairagya, basically. Detachment, counteraction by one type is doing away with attachments. But the positive is by Yukta Vairagya. He described Yukta Vairagya. What Yukta Vairagya mean is utilizing things in the service of the Lord. And that's a complete form of detachment. The incomplete form of detachment is Hari Sambandha Vastuna. And you give up Hari, things that are in relation with Hari. That's incomplete. text 27. So all this, there's like a 3-page purport. 27. He then explained by divisions Dharma, acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. I mean, how'd you like to give a Bhagavatam class in that condition? Briefly and extensively. And then the final. Then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life, citing instances from history, for he was himself well acquainted with the truth. Now, tomorrow, my plan is not to go through all of that in detail, but we could read the purport, but you can read the purport. This is nice purports. This is Canto 1, so it's introduction. It's the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, giving us foundational understandings that can be expanded in further and further and further cantos and verses of the Bhagavatam, but foundational teachings at the beginning. Very nice painting, huh? Look at all the detail. So he's gesturing with his right arm to Yudhisthira, who's over by his right side, and the other brothers are behind. Prabhupada's purport. Lord Sri Krishna wanted to prove that it is pure devotee, that is, to prove that his, but I think it should be his, pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment, and thus, in any circumstances, a devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. Even when you got a smashed toe, you can speak properly. And Prabhupada was an example. Maybe you've seen videos during when Prabhupada's the final days. Prabhupada's body is emaciated. He stopped eating. He's literally skin and bones. And if you read the last chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, that he gave the purports to, such clarity, without any reference to the commentary of the Acharyas. It's just astounding. Satsrup Maharaj told me this one story. When Prabhupada was in that condition, it's interesting. In addition to clarity about scripture and duties of life, Prabhupada asked Brahmananda, do you have the key to my Almira? And Prabhupada had told him to tie the key to his Almira on his Brahman thread. No, I don't do something like that, but sometimes I've seen Brahmins do that. ISKCON Brahmins don't do that, of course, but I've seen others. And he didn't have it. He panicked because Prabhupada told him, don't lose track of this. And I forget what happened after that, but he found out where he had left the key or a spare key to Tamal Krishna had or something like that. And then Prabhupada told him what to do. He was angry, transcendently angry, and told him, go to the drawer, such and such drawer, open up the drawer, pull out the drawer, and inside you find an envelope, and inside the envelope, bring the envelope. So he did. He brought the envelope, opened up the envelope. It was some kind of a note that was maturing on that particular day. And then Prabhupada said, deposit it in the book trust account and print such and such book. And otherworldly. Without commenting. I'll make a comment. Just today, I spent some time going through. I have some travel suitcases because sometimes I go to China, and inside the China suitcase there's China clothes, and then because I can't go into China wearing a dhoti, so I have to have China clothes. We'll call them Karmi clothes, but China clothes. And some other things that I use when I travel. So but when I opened up those suitcases, I was amazed what was in there. What to speak of something that expires on such and such date, and how it's to be used, and it's beyond human. Super soul. How else? Anyway, so that's our founder Acharya's example. In perfect order to speak of the right way. When Arjuna was seemingly polluted, this is purport, Prabhupada, by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet, this is Bhishma, grandfather Bhishma, may his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Purposefully, Arjuna was put into this bewildered state so that Krishna could speak Bhagavad Gita. And by speaking Bhagavad Gita, his bewildered state was taken away. And we know from a later chapter in the first canto, when Arjuna came back to inform Yudhishthira that Krishna has departed, by remembering his devastated condition, was completely transformed by remembering specifically the instructions that Krishna gave to him on the battlefield, and that was there to sustain his life and revive him when he was feeling devastated. And same for us, because we sometimes deal with difficulties, right? Maybe some of you don't have any, but most of the rest of us do. And the sustaining during those difficulties is made possible through the shelter of instructions from the Supreme Person, the all-perfect, infallible Supreme Person. Solace. Fulfilling my vow, we saw this painting earlier. Fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just like a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. The artist did a fantastic job capturing the whole scene. There's Arjuna holding Krishna around the waist and his leg. Don't smash grandfather Bhishma. He couldn't stop Krishna. Bhishma was so happy. He's going to smash me. He dropped his bow, opened his arms. Go ahead, smash me. Haribol. It stopped because the conch blew at the exact moment of the setting of the sun. Bhishma was saved by the setting of the sun because fighting stops at sunset. On the battlefield, he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. Now, Krishna doesn't have blood, right? He's without veins, right? Ishopanishad. So how does he have blood? No problem. Not because he has veins and blood comes out of the veins with his arrows. It's a transcendental Leela. And there's prayers where Arjuna expressed how terrible he felt, because the arrows are being fired not at Krishna but at Arjuna, and Krishna would move this way and that way and the other way to capture the arrows in his chest. We know this from Nectar of Instruction, and Krishna felt the arrows of grandfather Bhishma like the bites of a lover on the body of the beloved. Oh, that was very nice. Now, biting is not nice, but a loving exchange may be nice. And Krishna has that kind of loving affection for grandfather Bhishma. Although he's got the broken chariot wheel, he's ready to smash him. All is orchestrated to fulfill the happiness of his devotees. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna. Oh, boys, our scholars in the audience. What's the name of Krishna, who is the chariot driver of Arjuna? What's his name? Oh, you who know most of the answers. Go ahead, you got it. Partha Saraki. Partha is the name of Arjuna, right? Because Arjuna is called Partha because he's the son of Pritha, who is his mother. Kunti's another name is Pritha. So the Pandavas, Arjuna included, are called Pritha. So Partha, excuse me, he's not known as Pritha, he's Partha. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, Parthasarathi, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Krishna was very happy. And Bhishma is happy seeing Krishna happy. And he's happy seeing Krishna's happiness by protecting Arjuna and being the servant of his own devotee. That's his Bhaktavatsala meditation. Now he ends in these series of prayers glorifying Krishna's attraction for the gopis. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Vrajadam, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. So that's another canto, 10 chapters, 29 through 33. It's the autumn season. Krishna called the gopis at Bangsivat, and they all came. They were forcibly carried by the sound of his flute, and they began dancing. We discussed this, right? Yesterday. And as they were dancing, he detected some pride, so he just disappeared. And when he disappeared, they started imitating him and speaking to the trees and the creepers and the vines and the bushes. And where did Krishna go? So it's not, someone asked a question during the question answer session. Why did grandfather Bhishma not want to go to Goloka or become a gopi or something like that? Because he's a Mahajan. And the answer is he had a particular affection, not like he didn't know, he knows. This is Krishna, this is a happiness that Krishna has. And yet he was particularly attracted by that happiness that Krishna has by being the protector and the dearmost friend of Arjuna. And you'll think about it. How he's an eternal associate. Wherever Krishna goes, Arjuna goes. Wherever Arjuna goes, Krishna goes. They're inseparable. Narayana. They're inseparable. How dear to Krishna is Arjuna. Inseparable. So that's his meditation, Parthasarathi. But he's not unaware of the rasa dance. After Krishna's disappearance from the rasa dance, the damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord. There's many nice paintings and descriptions of all this. There's Bhishma on the bed of arrows. Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis, Prabhupada's purport, is a prayer to have their mercy at the last stage of his life. At the Rajasuya Yagya performed by Maharaj Yudhisthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders, and in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. Hint. We hear these things, and it's not just information, it's opportunities for meditation to always remember Krishna, Manmana. And that's the pure devotee, Grandfather Bhishma. Here's a picture of a yogya at the bottom. That's meant to indicate Rajasuya Yogya, that little thing down there. The love and affection which bind the Lord and devotee are exhibited in the case of Bhismadev. Bhismadev never forgot the Lord in his transcendental feature as Parthasarathi, and the Lord was present personally before Bhismadev while he was passing to the transcendental world. That is the highest perfection of life. Passing in Grandfather Bhishma again. Here's the Vaikuntha realm. Although it was 100% certain that Bhishmadev was approaching Vaikuntha Dham just after leaving his material body, still, as a humble Vaishnav, Bhishmadev desired to see the beautiful face of the Lord, for after quitting the present body, he might not be in a position to see the Lord anymore. A Vaishnava is not puffed up, although the Lord guarantees his pure devotee entrance into his abode. Prabhupada's comments about Bhishmadev. Bhishmadev, as a pure devotee of the Lord, entered the spiritual realm in one of the Vaikuntha planets where the Lord, in his eternal form of Parthasarathi, predominates over unconditioned living beings who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. Almost done. At the exact time when the sun began moving in the northerly direction, Bhishmadev, by his will, gave up his body. He was such a yogi. So the rising, the movements of the sun, this is just a comment about Vedic cosmology. The movements of the sun are identified in cosmology. He was very knowledgeable. It's a very auspicious time. Makara Sankranti is a very auspicious time. And so he chose to leave his body at that time. And that's the end. Could you hear? If you want to see, I thought it might be nice to take a look at the chart again. Where's Bhishmadev? He's on the left side in that green color, son of Ganga and Santanu. And of course, Santanu was the son of, there's the lineage from which he came. And over on the left side is another Vedic king, Yadu, generations, Surasena, Vasudeva, Kunti, etc., etc. And there's pale blue, Vashishta had a disciple, Shakti. Shakti had a disciple, Parashara. Parashara became the father with Satyavati of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva became the father by Satyavati's arrangement with Ambika, Ambalika, and the maidservant of Ambika. That's Vidura. And so these three sons of Vyas, and these two, Ambika and Ambalika. Okay. So my thought is, tomorrow morning, we're not going to need a screen. I was thinking just to read from the words that Grandfather Bhishma spoke. I mean, this scene is really beautiful. The words of Mahabharata, and even the retelling of the words of Mahabharata through Krishna Dharma, is so nice. And he, the instructions that he gave, and how everyone was feeling, and how everyone was relating to him, and how he was relating to everyone. It's very personal and very sweet. So that's tomorrow. Any discussion? We can flip the light switch on.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. On that verse where he's saying that this is all the plan of the Lord, in the commentary to that verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the plan of the Lord is perfect, but it's not open to inquiry. It cannot be understood. And then he further has, he's sort of doing a sub-conversation relating what Maharaj Yudhishthira is thinking or saying. So Maharaj Yudhishthira is saying that why don't we ask Krishna the plan of the Lord? He's standing right here. And then to that, Bhishadev responds that even if you ask him, he will not tell you. Because Krishna always speaks in elusive ways. Even in the Vedas, he speaks, but no one can understand him. And then he further says, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, well, we're drawn to inquire that why is it that this is Krishna's plan? Because he says that we have not seen any happiness. Does Krishna want to give his devotee happiness? And he says, we have not seen any happiness in the lives of the Pandavas. And does he want to give them distress? He says, well, Krishna being Bhaktavatsala doesn't want to give his devotee distress. And therefore, we cannot understand his plan.
Very playful, huh?
Yes.
We can't say things like that, but acharyas can say things, and we can say they said.
Yes. And I was also curious that is this our should this also be our approach, that that Krishna's plan is perfect, and we just accept it. We really don't expect or try to understand it.
It's okay to ask. It's natural to ask. And in some cases, the reason and the plan and the reason behind the plan, they're revealed. Like why this, why not that. It's personal. And then sometimes it's revealed unto our acharyas, and sometimes our acharyas reveal to us. And as you were narrating the first part, I was thinking, our acharyas can say these things, and we can't say these things. Sometimes, for example, going to other types of pastimes, sometimes our acharyas, sometimes our founder acharya would describe Krishna in seemingly discourteous ways. A debauchee. The gopis would speak of him like that, but they were enjoying the quote debauchee. But they have a relationship where it's not an offense to use that kind of language. So we can appreciate those that have that intimacy that we don't have, and they have an understanding of his purposes, his happiness, his plan, in ways that we can't understand. It's puzzling. Or don't ask, but ask. Or you can't understand, but ask anyways. And the asking isn't like forever and ever and ever and keep hammering and keep asking, keep hammering and keep asking. Like obsessive or something. But allow that it's not going to be, it may not be understood, and in the course of time it may be understood. Krishna may reveal something to a sincere soul. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh. And that's the way of life of our great acharyas, and they very kindly share those realizations or those revelations in their commentaries. Vishwanath Chakrabarti is really good at it, among others, but he reveals things that are just not understood otherwise. So it's okay to ask. It's okay to be satisfied that you're not going to understand, even if it's answers given. Maybe another time, maybe not also, but maybe another time, going through this same section with the assistance of a number of our acharyas, along with Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, the comments that they make, the insights that they make. But this was intended specifically just to be like kind of a picture of a pure devotee. That's why the opening slide, a pure devotee of Krishna. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. One comment, maybe I just want you to add a little bit more to that. The whatever Amba has to go through with her get back attitude to against Bhismadev, it's very good lessons for us because she went to great personalities, Lord Shiva and Parshuram, with that attitude to kill Bhismadev. But she was not able to do, and then she had to go through a lot of, take another birth, and change the sex, and so many things she had to go through. So we don't hear so much about Bhishmadev. I don't think he was even any kind of enmity towards that. Reaction to reactive to that activity what Amba is going through. So it was even though she is going to great personalities, but with that attitude it was not helping her to come out of it, and she had to take another birth, and so much. So even it's not that she was able to kill him immediately. Bhishmadev lived long life, so that was anyway he can live at whatever his own wish, but still that attitude was very.
I was just reading yesterday Bhismadev, he had explained this twice. And one of the times he was explaining was to Duryodhana. And he explained the whole thing to Duryodhana, and he concluded, Sikandi hates me with a vengeance. But I won't battle with Sikandi because Sikandi was born as a woman. So if Sikandi comes and engages in battle with me, I won't fight. And Duryodhana heard it and remained silent. So he didn't have enmity towards her, although she wanted to kill him. In big, lifetimes worth of wanting to kill him. But he didn't have any, even with that, he had no enmity towards her. Unique. Ruta, pass her the microphone. Hit the magic button there.
Just to continue your deep appreciation of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, I was thinking that...
You can add to what your son said?
No, not exactly. I was just thinking that, how amazing personalities they are, and especially their humility, because they, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he was in the 1700s, and these events happened so long time ago, like Brahma's prayers, and how he feels himself so incapable to comment on those things, but yet he has such an insight into that, and he's such a Rasik Vaishnav. It's like, it's just the combination of their humility and their insight and giving us so much juice, so much insight into these pastimes. I was just, appreciating what you said about that, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I was thinking about this really touching Bhishmadev. In spite of his own condition, he's not thinking about himself. He's actually empathizing with the Pandavas, what they have gone through.
Oh, you poor souls.
Yeah. That's really, really touching.
Yes.
That's just an
Thank you
appreciation.
for remarking
Yeah.
like that.
Guru Maharaj, the question I was thinking, it came both yesterday and today about Bhishmadev's destination. He's actually thinking and let my mind be attracted to the Krishna as Parthasarathi and the one who is with the gopis. Like how he is in the Vaikuntha realm and not Goloka. Maybe I'm not understanding the distinction between those destinations.
Well, Parthasarathi has no place in Goloka. It has place in Vaikuntha. Someone mentioned, and it's true, that he was meditating on the four-arm form of Narayana, which is not exactly Parthasarathi, or Parthasarathi is an expansion of that feature, the four-armed Narayana feature, that has its place in Vaikuntha. No. Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we mentioned this. Here we go again. When Gopakumar is standing at the gate of Vaikuntha, waiting for permission from Narayana to enter, what does he see? He sees people coming and going. And it's not just four-armed forms that look like Narayan. Right? Are you familiar? Or you're not familiar? You're not familiar. All kinds of entities. All kinds of entities. All kinds of entities. Some not even in human form, what to speak of four-armed looking like Narayana. Because we're accustomed to hearing what the paintings show also is everyone they look just like Narayan except Srivatsa and Kastubhajam. That's what we're accustomed to hearing. Brihad Bhagavatamrita gives a very different picture. So there's a place in Vaikuntha for Parthasarathi. It has everything to do with the mood of devotion, and according to the mood of devotion, they assume a form, and the Lord assumes a form to correspond with their devotion. If you want to learn more about it, read that section of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Does that help? Okay.
Guru Maharaj, there's so many layers upon layers of subtlety in this pastime, and what meets the eye may not be the truth. What seems like a fight is actually a loving exchange. So just appreciating the ability to hear from qualified sources. And a question that comes to mind is this teaching of Bhismadev of these 3 points of check: Brahmins, God, and religion. So there are several examples where the Brahmanas have given an advice that is not in line with religion. For instance, Parshuram asking Bhishma to get married against his vow, or Shukracharya and Bali Maharaj. And then there's also religious scriptures that are in different modes, not necessarily in the mode of goodness even. So how is one to discern, because one of them or two of them could be giving advice that's not exactly in line with paradharma?
Well, you know the answer.
It has to be God.
Just through the ultimate to know about God is through Scripture. That's the authority. That's the pramana, Shastra Praman. And now, how to discern the meaning of Shastra? Different brahmanas may discern this way and some that way. So which version do I take? The disciplic succession is the solution, because when disciplic succession is broken or absent, the knowledge is lost. So a discerning person like you should be very clear about what's disciplic succession, sources of knowledge. And then we talked about this the other day, I forget which class, but there may be within this disciplic succession, we'll just speak of another disciplic succession in this one, but even within this one, this is this and then this is that by two acharyas. You know the example? All right, so then it's not a problem. And you like this, Bhishmadev has a liking for Parthasarathi, although he has profound appreciation for wanting the blessings of the gopis, and therefore is remembering them and Krishna's love for them and their love for Krishna. So the answer to your question is through disciplic succession. And through our disciplic succession, we don't have to be as qualified as they are. We can become qualified like they are. But through them, we can understand from Skanda Purana, for example, what are some passages that we can accept in an absolute sense. And then if they're not mentioned, then we, don't touch. It may or may not be, but we don't know, and so we don't touch. We take through disciplic succession. Then one has to be discerning from whom I hear, while being respectful to others that have a different perspective. Never be disrespectful. Be respectful. You may not follow it, but don't be disrespectful. That's what we do. You're closer.
Maharaj,
You're on.
we all know that Srimad Bhagavatam is a complete scripture in itself, and Krishna gave us Bhagavad Gita. So I was thinking, like, acharyas and disciplic succession, why would they write Brihad Bhagavatam or like Govinda Bhashya? Okay. I mean, for me, I was thinking like reading Srimad Bhagavatam, if I read daily 40 pages, it will take 50.
Be happy, Shanti.
So when I hear all this, we should read those also, which, I mean, you
Don't
refer.
worry. If you're happy with Bhagavatam, don't worry.
Okay.
But sometimes there's questions. What about this? What about that? Etc. Etc. Like this. Like here's a Bhagavatam reference that says Parthasarathi. Now, did it occur to you to ask the question, what's Parthasarathi doing in Vaikuntha? Did that occur to you? It occurred to me.
No, I didn't. Yeah.
Well, there's an answer. And Brihad Bhagavatamrita has the answer. But otherwise, just put it in a parking lot if I don't know. You got a really full parking lot.
So they are like guides to the main book.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Shanti. And then comes like this other nice expression. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes something about what's in the Bhagavatam and looks at it through this angle or looks at it through that angle, and it adds to the sweetness. That was already there. He's just milking the cow, and here's some milk. Oh, it's really sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're happy just, without the commentary. There's the Prabhupada's very simple commentary, which is everything. Everything's there. Yes.
Maharaj, I was a couple questions. One was Bhismadev actually chanted Vishnu Sahasranam. That's what we understand. But it's not mentioned anywhere in Srimad Bhagavatam. So that was my first question.
Do you have a reference for that? Besides, I heard it.
Actually, in Vishnu Sahasranam, starting itself says is Bhishma Uvacha. Mahabharata. Bhishma Parva, something like that.
Okay, before responding, I'd like to know the scriptural source. That's me. I don't. Without the scriptural source, it's hard to engage in dialogue on something. I don't know the source of it. I don't know if it's. I don't know. So, if Vishnu Sahasranam is part of one of the sections of Mahabharata, and in fact, in Mahabharata, Bhismadev recites Vishnu Sahasranam. So, if we start with that premise, supposing that's in Mahabharata, now what's your question?
I was just wondering, it was not mentioned Bhagavatam because it's actually chanting 1,000 names of Vishnu.
Well, that's the thing. There's only 18,000 verses. You can't.
Yeah.
Mahabharata has a lot more.
Okay. And another question was...
It's said, if I can't remember, maybe somebody here has a better memory than me. In Tattva Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami indicates that on the heavenly planets, the Bhagavatam is so many verses, and the original Bhagavatam is so many verses. Or the Ramayana has 24,000 verses, and Mula Ramayana is 1 billion verses. Where's that one? Who's got a copy of that one? I don't know if there is a copy of that one, but that was given by Vishnu to Lord Brahma, and Brahma gave it to Vyas, and he wrote for 24,000. That's a little slice of 1 billion. So, there's bigger versions of things, of which we have, a capsule version, so to speak. So if something is there in Mahabharata that's not there in Bhagavatam, it's quite okay. No.
What was the role of Vyasadeva in spite of Dhritarashtra wasn't following adharma? He never instructed as a father. So what was his basic
Well,
role?
It doesn't say he never instructed him. I don't know of any verses that say that he did. I don't know any verses that say he didn't. My understanding of that pastime was his mother, Satyavati, was in anxiety, and because he had given her a promise, you call my name, I'll come at once, he came when he was in the midst of austerities. But he came at once. And she made this request, and he said, well, I'm not really in a position to do this, but because you're asking me, she said, no, I can't wait because I don't know what's going to happen because time and things get destroyed and even these two ladies may get destroyed, so proceed. And so he proceeded, and then he went back to his austerities. He just did a service. He didn't, do the child rearing program. He went back to his austerities.
No, nothing in the family affairs looks like.
Well, there may have been or may not have been. Here's an example. I've been having this dialogue with one devotee that loves Ramayana, and the question has arisen, other than the one mention at the beginning of Sundarakanda, where Hanuman offers prayers to his guru, the sun god. Where is it described that he received teachings from the sun god? There's no description, but he must have. Then just today I got a message that there's two verses in Uttarakhanda where the Surya is speaking something to the effect that I have gifted him not only with knowledge, but with the ability to speak very eloquently, which Hanuman was noted for when Ramchandra first met him. He spoke to Lakshman. Just see how eloquently he speaks. And all his Sanskrit is just perfect, and he's a highly learned person. So where did that happen? Did Surya spoke to him? Where is it described? What did Vyas do in relation to those three sons that he fathered? Who knows? It's not described that I know of. Maybe it's in the Mula Mahabharata somewhere. Maybe not. So your question is, did he give further instruction? Especially to Dhritarashtra, because he was misguided. There's nothing. There's silence on that question.
I need to just formulate this. Already done. It's written. So Maharaj, it is a glorious departure that you described today for Bhismadev. And you mentioned that it was co-orchestrated by both Krishna and Bhismadev. So is it possible you could elaborate on, similar departures in the scriptures? Such a glorious one as similar to this?
Sure. And let me open up the floor for anyone else that wants to respond to this. Huh? Parikshit Maharaj. Was that glorious or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Haridas Thakur?
He was being flogged.
Huh?
He was
No,
flogged.
but besides that, he was in Puri, not flogged. He was already past that episode. He's in Puri. And he decides to give up his body. And he gives up his body in the presence of Lord Chaitanya, seeing the face and form of Lord Chaitanya. He gives up his body at will. Haridas Thakur.
Hare
It's a
Krishna
different
Maharaj.
kind of glorious. Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question about the passing of Bhismadev. It's about the chronological order of, like a lot of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they follow Bhishma Panchaka. But actually, if you look at the events, the Srimad Bhagavad Gita was revealed on the Margasish first Ekadasi, and but the Bhishma Panchaka is followed on the last 5 days of Kartik. But again, Bhishma Dev himself has passed away on the first Ekadashi of Uttarayan. So it kind of confuses me. So if you can explain me.
Interesting you're asking this question, because in the past 6, 7, 8 days, I've had exchanges with several persons. Shyamasundar Prabhu, who's an astrologer, who was previously had full responsibility for writing our Vaishnava calendar, VCal. He wrote the software to determine VCal, how you determine dates and things. He raised a question. Who can say that that Bhagavad Gita was spoken on an Ekadasi day? Because according to astrology, that's an inauspicious day for something like a battle. It's an auspicious day for other things, but not an auspicious. So who would start a battle on Ekadasi? So I, Shamsundar, doubt that it happened on Ekadasi. Bhanu Swami said, there's nothing in our Gaudiya line that gives a date for when Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Somehow it's in our calendar. And it's not only Moksha Ekadasi, it's Gita Jayanti. And that's just one piece of your question. So, because Bhishma parted, now another part of your question. According to the Bhagavatam, Bhishma parted on Makara Sankranti. And Bhishma Panchaka comes at the end of Kartik. But that doesn't mean Bhishma performed Bhishma Panchaka before he departed. It's just part of what, a calendar event at the end of an auspicious month. So one thing isn't connected at all to the other thing. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
My the word of mouth that I have no scriptural authority for, so I shouldn't say it. Just the word of mouth that kind of vernacular, ISKCON vernacular is. Bhishma said it's really difficult. No, Bhishma? Bhima. Bhima or Bhishma Panchaka? Bhishma. So, anyway, it's a particular vrata for people who have the capacity for austerity and want to end the month with a glorious austerity, this thing, that thing, the other thing. Has nothing to do with passing.
Okay, thank you.
And then the day of Bhagavad Gita being spoken is up in the air. As far as, this recent exchange. And there are learned persons that doubt that that's actually the date.
So my understanding was Bhishma Dev followed the.
Could you hold the
Panchaka.
microphone closer to the speaking part of your body? Thank you.
So my understanding.
You wave it. It's hard to follow.
My understanding was Bhishma Dev performed Bhishma Panchaka in the battlefield, but which is not true. Like he might have, because his passing was orchestrated
Show me
by
a
himself.
scripture reference that says what you just said, and I don't think you'll be able to. Because there's not, it would be in the Bhagavatam or Mahabharata. It's neither. So where is it? So you've got an understanding that doesn't match what Scripture says. When that happens, what do? You hit the delete button. Can you do that?
Yeah.
I'll think about it. Okay. Yes, up on the stairway.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I want to seek some clarification. So the transgression between Bhishmadev and Parshuram, about Bhishmadev not following the instructions of Parshuram, was that particularly around the vow that Bhishma had taken?
Yes.
In which case, was Bhishmadev more attached to his vow than, instructions of the spiritual master?
Well, you could, you if you want to take that path, you could. The other path is the instructions of the spiritual master should not supersede Vedic principle, and that was the position that he took. And the Vedic principle is, I've taken a vow, and you're asking me to do something that's against my vow. So in that case, I can neglect the instruction because it's against a principle of vow taking. Now, let's go to Yudhisthira telling a lie. And Krishna, but it's Krishna, not just spiritual master, it's Krishna saying, tell a lie. I can't tell a lie. And then he did. So, I understand your question. It's a good question. It's so, should we be more attached to vows that we keep than the instructions of the spiritual master is the essence of your question. Flip it around the other way, and the instructions of the spiritual master should be in consideration of vows that someone has taken. Not to, unless there's a transcendental higher purpose. In the case of Krishna saying tell a lie, there was.
So Guru Maharaj, can I just ask a follow-up?
Yeah,
so
sure.
in this particular case, the vow was more material. Could you say the vow that Bhishmadev took was more materially motivated than a spiritual higher cause?
You could argue like that. Yeah, it was just so his dad could marry this lady and so
Correct.
take a vow.
So that was really why I was wondering if...
And so, and conversely, why is Parshuram saying, is it spiritual or material? Marry the girl.
But Maharaj, in that particular case, at least we understand that it is about protection of women and the fact that, Amba was forsaken for various reasons, that this would be the best step for the protection of women.
That's arguable. Is it the best step? Could Amba have been protected some other way? And she wanted it her way. You can make an argument. One could make an argument in the direction that you're speaking, and it seems like a good argument. Then comes this question: how are you going to decide? This good argument, that good argument. Flip a coin. What are you going to do? In the higher order of things, there's a plan of Krishna. Now, in our lives, the higher order of things, the plan of Krishna for us, may not be so evident. What to speak of? No, even in this case, what to speak of in our lives. I'm just thinking over what the question you're raising. It would be, I'd like to take a look at more closely the conversation between Parshuram and Bhismadev. If that situation arises for one of us to not exactly negotiate, but to make a request of the authority, spiritual master, was giving an instruction, do this or else. And you can ask the spiritual authority, can you please consider withdrawing that instruction? Now, there's commentary in this regard that says there are standards under which one cannot accept the instruction of the spiritual master. And this was one of them, which was because he's the knower of Dharma, Bhismadev. And the knower of Dharma, Bhismadev, this is a condition where I cannot follow your instruction, although following the instruction of the spiritual master is so strong, which was exactly what Amba wanted. Tell him. So it can be discussed. If there's an instruction that goes contrary to some other principle that you hold very dear, it's a religious principle for a Kshatriya. You don't break your vows. Now, does the instruction of spiritual master supersede a dharmic principle? That's the question. Whatever the basis of it is. A dharmic principle. If the Kshatriya takes a vow, you uphold your vow. I would suggest, just in practical terms, to that spiritual authority, spiritual master, or whatever, you present reasons why please withdraw that instruction. And see where that one goes. I got 6 hands in the air on that topic. Go ahead. On the same topic?
Yes, on the same thing. Would it apply to Shukracharya and Bali Maharaj and Vamanadev's situation as well?
Yeah.
What you just explained?
Yes. Yes.
I actually have 3 things if we have time.
On a different topic, right?
The first one was a comment on that one.
Okay, go ahead.
Two facets I was thinking of. One is the role of Parshuram was not necessarily of spiritual instruction. It was more training around military arts.
It's mostly what?
Training around military arts.
Yes.
So the role was slightly different than what I understand to be an instructing Shiksha Guru.
Yes.
The other thought I was having
that's a strong point. Strong point.
The other thought I was having, Maharaj, is of Mahaprabhu when Govinda was sent to him by Ishwar Puri to serve him, and he didn't feel comfortable with that at all because it was his, his godbrother. He didn't want to receive service from his godbrother.
Yeah.
And then he sought, instead of, he couldn't ask his spiritual master because Ishwar Puri had left by then. Then he consulted with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who then said the instruction of the spiritual master in this case is higher than the dharmic principle of receiving service from one's godbrother. So it seems to me like in such a situation, having trusted brahmanas to receive some guidance when...
Fantastic example.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
That was my foot. The second thing, Maharaj, I wanted to ask is, in Bhismadev's life, the name Bhishma means someone who's like super.
Great vow.
And comparing his previous life, where he was henpecked with his wife, getting him in trouble, and then coming into a situation in this current life where he says no wife. my question is, what is it? What association or what happened for Bhishmadev that he became so determined that we can learn from him of how to gain that kind of determination? Because that's something I've been thinking about in my life a lot.
You two discussed this topic? I could say something funny, but I better not. Obviously, he was a person of virtue. That virtue was transgressed, stealing the property of Vishishta. Major. So your question is, how did he get the determination, having made a vow to through thick and thin, and have no hesitation to follow it with Parshram, to follow with Amba, to follow it in there he is on the battlefield of Kurukshetra telling Duryodhana, I will not fight, because he's a dharmic man. So no, where did the determination to be such a dharmic person come from, is your question. Well, it seems like it's lifetimes. It's not this lifetime only. For us, it's some persons are more, and some persons are on the way, and some persons are less. There's a nice discussion when Raghunath Das leaves, and the father brought him back, and finally the father reaches the conclusion that his mind has been taken away by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he makes a comment that says something to the effect, not quote unquote, but something to the effect that one has a certain nature, and you have to honor that certain nature is there. So he's gone. We tried. So where does nature come from? It's not just one lifetime. Vasana, tendencies accumulate over lifetimes. So we practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice, and then how much do we deviate from our practices and stay firm to principles that we believe in or we align ourselves with? I mean, one of the topics I want to speak about this weekend is purity is the force. So how do you get purity? Practice and practice, but on a certain principle, not just practice anything. Practice on a principle. So he had that. So one might say he had this character capacity. He got deviated and he learned his lesson. And now I'm not going to deviate again, like Jad Bharat. I learned my lesson. No, sometimes we don't learn our lessons, we do it again anyways. But when there's character, then you can stay true to the principle that you have been living by for lifetimes. And you just don't deviate. I mean, the question you're raising is a topic I wanted to speak about this weekend. To be continued.
Marge, I have one more technical question. in the family chart that you showed there, it shows Parashuram's spiritual master Shakti, who's spiritual master Vashishta. And in the 3rd canto, 8th chapter, there's a different disciplic succession described of Parashuram. Parashuram's spiritual master being Sankhyayanai Muni, whose spiritual master is Sanat Kumar.
Yeah, this I believe this is taken from Mahabharata, not from Srimad Bhagavatam.
Right, Parashar is in the 3rd canto. Maybe I misspoke.
Okay. Okay. Let's go over here first. Gopal Hari, please.
Maharaj, on this point of the Parashuram and Bhismadev's battle, one, this is just my speculation, I don't have a Shastric source, but one thought that came to me is perhaps Bhishma, like a very good disciple, could understand that Parashuram was testing him. Like when Narad Muni tells Dhruva Maharaj that, no, just go home, play. And that's his instruction to him, go home and play, don't be. But he said, no, I wanted to see your determination. And in the same way, Parashuram wanted to see Bhishma's determination. But at the end, when he triumphs over Parashuram, Parashuram is actually very happy. You kept your vow, you triumphed, and this was just me testing you.
Well, interesting idea. However, it's life or death. I'm just testing your determination. And he would have killed him if he could, but he didn't. Couldn't. Online.
This is from Apurvanand Prabhu. During the Vedic case, was birth given priority over his qualities? As we see in Vidura, was not made the king.
I don't follow. It's a comment.
I mean, was the in the Vedic case, birth was given more priority than the qualities. Vidura was having a great qualities, but he was not made the king.
Well, that's overbroad deduction. Next. Meaning, the king is decided by birth, yes. But to say, that overall the character, guna and karma is not the deciding factor. For the king, it's the deciding factor. The eldest son.
This is from Vamshi Krishna Prabhu. By following his own duties,
By following what?
His own duties.
His own duties.
Bhishmadev inadvertently attracted many enemies.
He inadvertently did what?
Attracted many enemies.
Many enemies. Welcome.
How should we deal with this?
Spoke like that all the time. Become a strong follower. You can have many enemies. Don't expect otherwise. Go ahead.
How should we deal with this if we face animosity of others when we follow Krishna consciousness?
Smile. Something else. We're done. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.